Lesson 3. Introducing the Life Science System for Perfect Health. Part 1. 3.1. The Essentials of Life listed. 3.2. Pure Air. 3.3. Pure Water. 3.1. The Essentials of Life listed. Every factor in human well-being is also an element of nutrition. All needs are really nutritive needs. Deprivation of any single need may mean our demise or impairment of our growth, development, or health. A single factor insufficiently or incorrectly supplied can lead to disease and suffering. Most people are aware of the essentials of life, but they lose sight of these fundamentals as being factors and influences that are necessary to well-being within the context of society. Therefore, they are likely to violate the very laws of their existence and contribute to their own sickness and suffering. When in a state of disease, most people do not realize they have brought it upon themselves. They are aided in placing blame outside themselves by a professional that takes the stance that they've had an unfortunate bit of luck or they have been invaded by some microbial enemy. Though the needs of the ill differ from those of well people only in that their conditions must be made favorable to recuperation, both ill people and the medical professionals undertake a course of treatment that compounds the sickness. Both the physician and the sufferer enter into an attempt to poison the ailing body back into health. The fact is that drugging only makes a body worse. The causes of health are very simple. Our needs do not change substantially when we become ill. Even illness itself won't occur if the needs of our bodies and minds are properly met. The 19-factor elements for optimal well-being are listed as follows. 1. Pure air. 2. Pure water. 3. Cleanliness, both internal and external. 4. Sleep. 5. Temperature maintenance. 6. Pure wholesome food to which we are biologically adapted. 7. Exercise and activity. 8. Sunshine upon our bodies. 9. Rest and relaxation. 10. Play and recreation. 11. Emotional poise. 12. Security of life and its means. 13. Pleasant environment. 14. Creative, useful work. 15. Self-mastery. 16. Belonging. 17. Motivation. 18. Expression of the natural instincts. 19. Indulgence of aesthetic senses. Let us explore the first two of these needs in detail. 3.2. Pure air. 3.2.1. Air contents normal to humans. 3.2.2. Today's air is loaded with pollutants. 3.2.3. Many Americans pollute their homes and bodies by smoking. 3.2.4. Normal air is continually cleansed by forces in nature. 3.2.5. Air was originally brought to its present consistency by bacteria. 3.2.6. Air pollution in the American home. 3.2.7. What we can do to ensure a constant supply of fresh air. 3.2.1. Air contents normal to humans. Pure air is relatively free of pollutants. It contains only the normal amount of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, inert ozone, formaldehyde, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ammonia, and particulates, all of which the body is well equipped to handle. In other words, there is always water vapor, some carbon dioxide, and a minute amount of carbon monoxide in the air. Carbon monoxide isn't healthful in any sense, but we are equipped to handle it as naturally found in the air from natural sources. There is also particulates in the air, including dust or the debris of decomposing products. Pollens, fragrant emanations, and other natural effluvia are also present. There are inert gases in the air, free gases in very, very minute percentages. Some may be inorganic and toxic, but many come from forms of life. All of these constituents are not a part of the air's chemical composition, but are held suspended in it. They are known as variable components. Air is composed of nitrogen, 78.1%, oxygen, 20.9%, and fractional parts of less than 1% of argon, hydrogen, methane, nitrous oxide, xenon, krypton, helium, and neon. Today's air is loaded with pollutants. Humans have adapted to impurities in air over millions of years. Unfortunately, air today is loaded with immense amounts of pollutants not normal to our adaptations. Even those which we are equipped to handle in minute amounts often pervade the air in overwhelming quantities. For example, carbon monoxide is often in the air in urban areas in amounts sufficient to seriously affect well-being. In these same areas are huge amounts of lead, hydrocarbons, and other unwholesome substances in quantities that we cannot handle. Today we get only a fraction of the oxygen-rich air we need for good health. Compounded with the problem of the general pollution of outdoor air, we tend to stay in our homes and workplaces where we constantly inhale our own aerial excreta and staggering amounts of pollutants otherwise generated. Many Americans pollute their homes and bodies by smoking. Many Americans subject themselves to lung pollution from tobacco smoke. Smoking is a deadly, poisonous habit, a narcotic addiction that slowly kills. Non-smokers are harmed by the fumes as well as smokers. We should get as much fresh air as circumstances permit. The ideal is to live in completely fresh air in a pristine state of nature. If nothing changed in our current circumstances except that we lived in fresh air constantly, life expectancy would rise by many years. Normal air is continually cleansed by forces in nature. Normal air in nature has its fresh, life-giving consistency because it is continually cleansed by the forces of nature. Particulates are continually taken up into the air due to activity in the form of wind and breeze, but just as constantly they are dropped down when the air masses become relatively tranquil. For example, ozone constantly gets into the air but rises to the very top of the atmosphere where it remains. Methane gas constantly rises into the atmosphere from decaying organic matter, but other factors will decompose it back to some other form. Of course, much methane gets trapped within the earth by rock, by liquid overlay, and by other factors. Ozone and methane are both toxic, but it's rare that a great amount of them assault us at any given time or place. Air was originally brought to its present consistency by bacteria. There are certain bacteria called anaerobic bacteria. They've been around for a few billion years and were the first type of life on this planet. Anaerobic bacteria were photosynthetic in the beginning because there was no organic matter for their soil. It is theorized that these bacteria were able to take on the spark of life, utilizing minerals, light, and water. It is not ours to conjecture too much about the derivation of the original form of life, but perhaps it was some kind of anaerobic bacteria that could use sunlight as the spark of life. These bacteria began using water, sunlight, and inorganic substances with which oxygen was associated. They could synthesize these raw elements into their life needs. One of the byproducts of their metabolization was free oxygen. In time, the great amount of oxygen accumulated in the atmosphere that gives it the consistency it now has. Theory has it that life began in the water medium. No oxygen was present in the Earth's gaseous mantle because all oxygen was bound in some compound until the bacteria freed it. The original bacteria evolved into many different forms of bacterial life and into many forms of plant life. All cells are said to be composed of many bacterial cells that united and cooperated for the greater good. Essentially, all life is symbiotic, that is, it is fundamentally in harmony with all other life, from the most minute microbe to the largest of the Earth's creatures. On a practical level, we are concerned with air quality so that we can benefit from it all the more. We seek means by which to take in plenty of air in its purest form. With knowledge and understanding, we'll be able to help others conduct themselves in their environments so as to be optimally free of polluted air. Anything that gets into the lungs, which the lungs have not been equipped to handle efficiently and naturally, is a poison. The lungs have a tremendous capacity for expelling particulates and pollutants, but they can be devitalized by the pollutants and stressed by unceasing efforts to remove extraordinary types and amounts of impurities. The lungs will eventually be overwhelmed and lung diseases will result. You may have heard of black lung, brown lung, emphysema, pneumonia, and other ailments of those who live and work in polluted environments. This is especially true of those who work in coal mines, who smoke, or who live in highly polluted cities such as Los Angeles or New York. The lint and dust in cotton mills is notorious for destroying the lungs of those who work in them. You may know or know of people who have lung cancer, emphysema, and other afflictions because they smoke, work in asbestos plants, or work or live in other heavily polluted environments. While an atmosphere laden with innocuous dust is pathogenic if exposure is unceasing for long periods, many substances such as asbestos, tobacco tars, and poisons are very virulent in themselves. Despite the lungs' best efforts at ridding themselves of these poisons, they are always seriously and deleteriously affected. Air pollution in the American home. Most homes in America are very polluted places. They have filthy air. The words filth, poison, and pollution are fairly synonymous terms in this text. People who smoke deliberately and knowingly are intentionally poisoning themselves. Smokers do not seem to recognize that tobacco smoke is very toxic and is one of the biggest polluters of all. But most forms of pollution are unintentional, even unknown. Humans must have sufficient fresh air. We often read of people jumping from hotel rooms to their deaths on a sidewalk in preference to the tortures of smoke inhalation and fierce heat. In many cases there is no heat or even no imminent danger of suffocation, yet agony and fear prompts the death jump. Yet all too often smoke inhalation alone kills. How many times have you read reports of people who die in homes untouched by anything but smoke? Cleansers and detergents are used heavily in almost all homes. All of these substances are poisonous, although some are less toxic than others. Some exude almost no odor. They are called biodegradable or ecologically viable cleaners, detergents, and soaps. There is much carbon monoxide in many homes. Carbon monoxide is one of the primary pollutants which emanates from auto exhausts. It is very deadly in the human system, binding the oxygen in the blood. Carbon monoxide also destroys animal and plant life. Plants cannot assimilate it, and it actually causes leaves to wither. In the home, carbon monoxide is a byproduct of cigarette smoke, heating units, and cook stoves that use anything but electricity, and more. Air that contains sulfur dioxide is extraordinarily poisonous. It is to be found mostly in the air of industrial areas that burn coal. In these areas, homes are very likely to be polluted with sulfur dioxide, as well as with the extraordinarily aerial pollution to which most American homes are subject under conventional modes of living. Air pollution is becoming quite an issue, especially in some parts of America. In the East, acid rains are a problem for food raisers of all kinds. They are also destructive of buildings, autos, and everything else. In the Los Angeles area, rare forests and plant life are dying off due to the high polluted air. Many crops in that area are adversely affected. Gardeners as well as growers are just giving up. Los Angeles is becoming an area in which neither plant life, humans, nor other animals can thrive healthily. The purity of air is of great importance. Polluted air is a great source of debility and disease. Pure air is necessary for best health. It behoves us to have the best air possible. Unfortunately, the most polluted air is to be found in the average American home. Polishes, waxes, and other household items give off a large amount of gases. Whether pleasant or unpleasant, they're usually poisonous. Aerosols and sprays have become widespread in their use in our homes. Even foods such as artificial creams, toppings, etc., come in aerosol containers. The vaporizer is usually a fluorocarbon and/or vinyl chloride. Both substances are toxic, and a highly toxic material is used to thin these substances to make them aerate or expand when pressure on them is relieved. Chlorine is a deadly poisonous element. During World War I, it was used as a weapon. Many fighters succumbed to it. Even though chlorine is diluted in city water, we can still taste it. Most water supplies have been treated with this toxic element. How many times have you run bath water or showers and gone into the bathroom to be assaulted by accumulated chlorine? In bleaches and in some other compounds that are frequently used in laundering and cleaning, high concentrations of chlorine are usually released. Most people do not realize it, but certain types of plywood and other products in their homes are bonded with formaldehyde, which is in insulation, plywoods, and plastics. Formaldehyde is given off as a particulate in the air. It may be given off for years in homes and trailers. This substance is quite toxic, and many deaths have been attributed to breathing it. Formaldehyde is especially likely to be found in new homes, trailers, mobile homes, and new rooms where plywoods and bonded plastics are used. Oven cleaners are particularly toxic. They're designed to cut grease and to act as solvent for other debris on enamel. Their fumes are particularly toxic. Cosmetics are a very big source of pollution in some homes, especially where there are hairsprays and products containing fluorocarbons. The substances sprayed are usually very toxic in themselves, for they have copolymer residues of vinyl acetate. These residues are toxic when inhaled. Fumes from cosmetics that are in contact with the air may smell pleasant, but they're also toxic. The only substances that are not toxic in our bodies are pure air, pure water, and wholesome food. Anything else in our bodies is toxic, and possibly a contributory cause of pathology. Deodorants are extensively used in America, some $1 billion worth annually. That's enough to mask quite a bit of body stench. Healthy people do not use deodorants because they emit relatively non-malodorous smells. Deodorants and antiperspirants are used in minute amounts, and the basic ingredients are quite toxic. They consist of a formulation of drugs designed to inhibit the body's secretory functions. This inhibition of body functions occurs because the deodorants are so toxic that the body keeps skin pores closed lest absorption of the toxic drug occurs. Aside from their presence on the skin, deodorants give off particulates and vapors which are toxic to users and to others. They are particularly poisonous in homes because their pollutants tend to become cumulative. Air in homes, especially in winter, is retained for long periods of time and thus becomes stale as well as accumulating effluvia from the household. Insect repellents are often used in homes. While they're not immediately or deadly to humans as to insects, the fact that they are deadly to insects establishes their poisonous relationship to all living things. Insect poisons should never be used in the home except under conditions of non-occupancy. As additional camouflage for odoriferousness and for its perfumes, many women use powder. Powders are formulated around a base of dust. There are toxic drugs in the formulation as a rule, and the dust itself is also toxic. Its fumes or gases are toxic. Anything that gets into or on the body other than those substances normal to it are usually toxic and occasion irritation or intoxication. Usually their toxicity is on a low order, but they can cause pathology in sufficient concentrations. Added to other pathogenic factors, of which there are multitudes in the human system and environment, maladies often develop. Certainly, extraneous substances worsen and exacerbate existing pathology. Carpeting can also be a source of pollutants. Long after the dust and odors that they normally give off may have subsided, the synthetics of which they are made decompose and pollute the air. The dust, dirt, filth, and debris which carpets accumulate, and the excreta that results due to their bacterial decomposition, assault us. Among the poisons likely to accumulate in our homes from bacterial decomposition are carbon dioxide, methane gas, and ammonia. Any decaying substance, whether it's garbage, meats, or other foodstuffs, pollute the air with the byproducts of bacterial activity. Electric motors in appliances give off pollution. Clothes dryers give off carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide if they use gas. All drugs and medicines, especially those that are sprayed into the mouth and nose, are toxic. Preservatives and additives added to foods to enhance appearance, retard spoilage, etc., are toxic. In cooking, their gases permeate our household air and are additional sources of pollution. Volatile oils, especially from polishes, mustard oil, onions, garlic, and other pungent herbs, teas and drinks, etc., are not wholesome in the lungs. If you eat an onion or a piece of garlic, the lungs are one of the eliminating organs through which their toxic components are expelled. The oils of frying foods are not only toxic and very carcinogenic, but when inhaled, they tend to coat the lungs. Heated oils give off acrolein. While it may smell fine, it is really a Trojan horse, for its pleasant odor is contrary to its toxic nature. Cleansers are used almost universally. Most are chemical formulations that have a number of poisonous substances. Ammonias are usually a primary component, and they are very deadly. It is possible for the airborne grease from frying foods to accumulate in the lungs. Workers in kitchens who fry food, even if they do not smoke, are likely to have lung problems faster than those who smoke. Grease is not easily expelled from the lungs. For example, a person who works in a fried chicken outlet and uses a fryolator several hours each day may develop a chronic cough and even pneumonia from inhalation of aerated grease from cooking oils. There are also many other causes of lung maladies and coughing. Mechanics get a different type of oil and grease on their hands. These oils are akin to the fats in food. Mechanics do not leave oil and grease on their hands for very long, though many work with it throughout the day. They recognize the dangers because they suffer its irritations. Most mechanics scrub their hands frequently, yet they suffer many problems, including skin cancer on their hands. Cells and tissues cannot withstand the unceasing assaults of oil toxicity. Home air pollution occurs from anything that is burnt, cooked, or heated, except for boiling water. Stoves and heaters that produce heat by combustion within the home are especially heavy polluters. Wood stoves give off a lot of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, tars, and other toxic particulates. If you can smell anything, you can be sure that the air is being polluted. However, some gaseous pollution is odorless. Combustion within homes is dangerous on 2 counts. Some of the pollution that occurs has just been listed. The other count is the partial use of oxygen from inside air. Partially deoxygenized air may not furnish our oxygen needs sufficiently. Alcoholic drinks give off an effluvia that is unwholesome in the lungs. Of course, it is worse to drink alcohol. Alcohol, like the mustard oil of onions and allicin of garlic, is not used by the body because it is indigestible. The lungs are utilized as one of the avenues of excretion of alcohol. This is obvious because you can smell alcohol on the breath of anyone who has partaken of it. Breathing alcoholic fumes is not healthful and can occasion ill effects, especially for those subjected to breathing alcohol, as in breweries. Condiments, seasonings, spices, sauces, and gravies are almost all toxic in the lungs. Black pepper, for instance, is toxic in the lungs, far more so than when in the stomach. All these substances stimulate and irritate when raw, but when heated, their toxic components are liberated into the air, and some very toxic effects can result. Most condiments in the intestinal tract occasion irritation, indigestion, and other discomforting effects, especially laxative and diarrheal effects. These latter effects occur because the inflamed intestines rush the noxious matters, including food in the tract, to the nearest exit, the bowels. When condiments are in the air due to diffusion in the air or due to heating, the irritation to the lungs is similar. Perhaps you've heard of pruritus anus. This merely means itchiness of the anal region. It may be caused by body elimination of toxic materials through the skin in the anal region. However, it is more than likely due to the toxic components of condiments irritating the skin at the exit point. These can be deposited there by fecal matter before it's cleared from the area. Hot peppers and black pepper can cause this, but so can any other condiment. The amount of irritation these occasion on the skin and in the anal region is an indication of their toxicity in the intestinal tract. Cooking, brewing, boiling, and baking of foodstuffs, especially as concocted in the average American home, occasions the pollution of home air with gases, particulates, tars, and other unwholesome effluvia. Cooking destroys foodstuffs, and much of their substance is passed off into the air during the process. Cooked foods are harmful when ingested. Their aerial byproducts are also harmful in the lungs, no matter how much we say savor their fragrance. Americans are inclined to bring all kinds of chemicals into their homes. Chemicals in the home, wherever stored, slowly oxidize and vaporize, unless tightly capped. But sooner or later they are opened for use. Some chemicals are quite common, notably toothpaste, gargles, lotions, cleansers, lighting fluids, and antiseptics. Antiseptics can also be called antibiotics. They're not in any way antiseptic because the term means against poison. They're actually antibiotics for, indeed, they are destructive of life. They destroy bacteria wholesale. Likewise, antiseptics destroy living cells of skin, mouth, and lungs. If any odor can be detected from so-called antiseptics, the substance will be harmful. If all the foregoing sources of home pollution are not enough, there are human wastes and air usage to be considered. Humans give off toxic wastes from lungs and skin throughout the day and night. These wastes include carbon dioxide, carbonic acid, and minute amounts of other exudates. Also, the air expelled from the lungs is oxygen depleted. In closed homes, as they're likely to be in winter, the air becomes polluted from our own effluvia and deoxygenized from breathing. We're likely to breathe and rebreathe spent air and its load of toxic wastes. All this, coupled with the multitude of other pollutants in homes and the outside air taken into homes, makes the average American home a very polluted place. As a practitioner, you will want to recognize all the deleterious factors to which humans are customarily subjected. You will be looking for causes of problems from all sources. Knowing that the air quality in homes, outdoors, and in factories can contribute to pathology is essential. You may take it for granted that most areas of inhabitation in America are polluted to some extent. What can we do to ensure a constant supply of fresh air? By now, you may be asking, how can we ensure that we get as much pure air as possible into our lungs in this polluted world? Air that doesn't have more impurities than normal in nature is automatically pure. Our message is that it is really impossible to have really pure air in this day and age. We can place ourselves in situations where we have the purest air possible. To get the freshest possible air, we should keep our windows open. We should so live and conduct ourselves as to keep our home air-free of all these processes and products that pollute it. There is no insurance that we'll have the best air possible, no matter what we do or where we go, but, relatively speaking, we can have pure air in the outdoors, far from civilization, for nature is constantly cleansing the air. If we live in colder climates where we must live in closed spaces for energy conservation, we can get heat exchangers. A heat exchanger brings in fresh air from the outside and removes old air from the household. Through a dual piping and radiator system, the heat of the outside air is transferred to the incoming air to the point of equalization. As an example, let's say the outgoing air is 72 degrees and the incoming air is 32 degrees. The air will tend to equalize at some temperature in between. The incoming air will tend to equalize at a temperature lower than their normal nominal midway point. This means some additional energy must be expended in heating incoming air to the desired temperature. When you measure the benefits of heat exchangers in terms of health and energy conserved through their employment, the cost is a good investment. In energy saved, they're worth the cost in a few seasons. In terms of health, they pay for themselves many times over very quickly. Using a heat exchanger is just one thing we can do to ensure more fresh air. Most of us can go out and exercise or play in fresh air most days. When we exercise heavily and vigorously in fresh air, we completely oxygenize our systems, in addition to gaining a multitude of numerous other benefits. Exercise ventilates our entire body. Run, jog, or walk. Play an outdoor sport. Any sustained activity that greatly accelerates body function will ventilate your system. Especially important is the oxygenation of our capillary system, which results from exercise. Faster and more vigorous blood circulation ensures better capillary health due to greater oxygen uptake and rejuvenation of function. Stagnation of the capillary system is a primary contributor to deterioration and disease. The intake of fresh air in conjunction with exercise is of inestimable value. A device for improving air quality that is becoming popular is the negative ion generator. Research indicates that negative ion generators may have positive benefits, especially in the area of human response. Humans experience euphoria and well-being in ionized atmospheres, but little research has been done to determine whether the effects are beneficial or drug-like. No evidence has been developed to suggest that either negative or positive ions are any more or less healthful than the other. What has been determined is that negative ions precipitate dust, participants, and toxic materials from the air. If so, this is a positive benefit. I seriously doubt that ionized air gives a drug effect. In a very polluted home, a negative ion generator might be helpful. Air cleaners that precipitate particulates, dust, and other forms of pollutants are of benefit. Filters are also helpful. As health practitioners, you very well might have to live in or near a population center, most of which are polluted, in order to reach more people. When we must place ourselves in a polluted environment, we must suffer the consequences. We can reduce the effect by employing all the technology we can in cleaning our air supply in polluted areas. Just as we are apt to close up our homes and pollute our air, likewise we can close up our home and bring in fresh air that has been purified or filtered. Then we should refrain from, in any way, contaminating our inside air supply. Most auto pollution is along highways in most of our country, and where there are concentrations of autos. In other areas, the air is often stagnant, and the exhaust pollutants of the auto becomes cumulative, sometimes until the air is deadly, as in the Los Angeles area. The only suggestion we can make for avoiding carbon monoxide poisoning is to stay away from it. But this suggestion is of little value if you live in Los Angeles or New Jersey or similar areas. In low-pressure areas, carbon monoxide concentrates along the ground. New Jersey, which is called the Corridor State, has more auto traffic per square mile than any other state. It also has the most concentrated population. Further, it has heavy concentrations of chemical industries. So polluted is its air in industrial areas and along major highways that it is called Cancer Alley. More cancer occurs in New Jersey than in any other state. Cancer among people who reside near highways in New Jersey is 3 to 4 times that of the average American. These facts tend to indicate the dangers of carbon monoxide. They are indicative that, along with all other causes of cancer, carbon monoxide and its concomitant pollution might be the additional straw that breaks the camel's back and causes cancer. 3.3 Pure water. 3.3.1 Best sources for humans. 3.3.2 Chemicals used in water purification are toxic. 3.3.3 Spring and well water. Water deserves treatment equally as much as air. In fact, insomuch as breathing is an automatic process and drinking is a consciously directed process, water deserves more attention. Though every aspect of our well-being deserves adequate attention, those areas wherein our health is more likely to be endangered or undermined should receive the most detailed treatment. Getting the water we need is one of those areas. Besides wholesome food, only 3 items should ever be taken into our bodies. These are air, about which we've spoken, sunshine, which we'll speak about in another lesson, and water. We'll take up this subject next. At this stage, suffice it to say that anything in or on the body other than wholesome foods, air, water, and sunshine, all essential body nutrients, is unhealthy. This stricture may seem severe, but we cannot exceed the limits of our adaptations. To do so is to subject ourselves to pathological consequences. Your role as a health practitioner is to keep yourself and your clients in a regime of living as free as possible of the dangers inherent within the context of a civilized society. The word civilization is in quotes, for what kind of society can be said to be civilized if it harbors grave dangers for its members? As promised, let's move on to the subject of water. What is water? What is its role in the body? Why do we need it so vitally? What kind or kinds of water should we have? What is the best source of our water requirements? As we get into the subject, we'll endeavor to answer these questions. The expression pure water is used throughout our treatment of the subject of water. If there's anything anyone wants, it is pure water. No one wants impure water, yet most people drink anything but pure water. Pure water is purely water, only water, and nothing but water. Best sources for humans. The purest water is distilled water. Inasmuch as an individual lives as he should, he will get all or almost all his water needs from a diet of proper foods. Therefore, very little distilled water will ever need to be consumed. Distilled water should be a secondary source of water. Humans are not naturally water-drinking creatures, for they have absolutely no equipment for it, as have natural water-drinking animals. Therefore, the proper diet for humans is necessarily water sufficient. A correct diet must contain the pure water that we require. Fruits contain the purest water of all, and also are the finest foods of all. The water in fruit is completely pure, that is, it is without any trace of inorganic materials or other matters that are likely to combine with body fluids and clog up blood vessels, cells, or interstitial spaces. Most life scientists are primarily and almost wholly fruit eaters. Bear in mind that many so-called vegetables are actually non-sweet fruits, and that technically nuts are fruits too. Because they are almost exclusively fruit eaters in a pristine state of nature, and because a fruit diet is water sufficient, humans never developed water drinking mechanisms. Why does the body need water? What role does water play in the body? Why is impure water harmful to the body? The primary role of water in the body is as a transport medium. It is also the medium of storage for needed organic compounds and electrolytes within the cells. This is accomplished by the water holding molecules and nutrient reserves in suspension. Impure water harms the human organism because the impurities are invariably poisons. While our foods contain water, water from non-food sources is not our medium for food or nutrients. Minerals in water are dissolved from soil and rock and have no more virtue in the human body than if the soil or rock itself was eaten. The body simply cannot handle inorganic materials. Inorganic materials circulate in the body as poisons. Anything at all in water, aside from wholesome foods, is, therefore, a pollutant or a poison. Thus, people who drink water are likely to imbibe a plethora of poisons. Different people drink water for different reasons. For instance, many health seekers drink spring water, well water, sea water, and other kinds of water in the mistaken belief that it is healthful. Let's take a closer look at water drinking in America and examine certain probabilities in regard to water drinking. Some people, including life scientists, drink little water because they are primarily fruitarians. Their diet is water sufficient. Some people drink distilled water either because they are health aware and want pure water, or because their regular water supply is unsuitable for drinking. By far the larger number of Americans who drink distilled water do so because their regular water is so bad, not because of any overall health orientation. They may be said to be undertaking a healthful measure in preference to an obviously unwholesome practice. In either of these cases of people who drink distilled water, water drinking is indulged because of a more or less unwholesome diet, a cooked diet containing salt and other condiments. Our natural diet is water sufficient. Some people deliberately drink mineralized water in the mistaken belief that their bodies need all the minerals they can get. These are usually health-oriented persons who do not realize that minerals in water, as picked up from soil and water, are the very same as the minerals in soil or powdered rock and are not used by the body. They shun chemicalized water from water systems. The majority of people drink water whenever water is available, mineralized, chemicalized, from their local water system, wells or springs. These people consume a diet that is either water deficient or so unwholesome as to require heavy supplies of water. Life scientists sometimes drink distilled water. They may do so because they are fasting and not taking in water from food sources, or they may drink distilled water to supplement the water present in their diet. In the latter case, extra water may be required during particularly hot weather, especially if the individual engages in vigorous physical activity. Tens of millions of Americans drink soft drinks, coffee, tea, cocoa, and a host of other water-containing concoctions when thirsty. These people entertain and stimulate themselves in the process of getting their liquids. While pure water is, in itself very satisfying to the thirsty, many seek other gratifications which they get by consuming the kinds of drinks just mentioned. All drinking of anything but pure water is less than ideal and most often is quite unwholesome and disease-producing. For instance, many drink fresh vegetable and fruit juices to quench their thirst. Juices, though fragmented food, are nevertheless foods. They should not be used as substitutes for distilled water. Chemicals used in water purification are toxic. Most Americans drink liquids, and most liquids taken contain inorganic minerals, fluorine, chlorine, and other so-called chemicals of purification. Bacteria in water are far less harmful than the chemicals that are used to destroy them. Their presence in water usually indicates that the water contains organic matter, but bacteria in water are no more harmful than those we constantly take in by air or those which populate our intestinal tracts. However, water we drink should be pure. No water system in this country furnishes pure water. Invariably, it is polluted in some harmful way. Drinking tap water is fraught with dangers. The U.S. Public Health Service released the results of research and surveys of water from various water systems in the U.S. Over 80 carcinogens were found. Most of these were from the breakdown of chlorine in water systems or its combination with other chemicals. Chlorine itself is a carcinogen. Chemicals from agricultural fertilizers, chemical industries, pesticides, and homes pollute our waters. Sulfur, iron, gypsum, calcium, magnesium, and other inorganic materials are toxic in themselves. Purification systems, so-called, do not remove these minerals. They are designed to remove bacteria, which are less harmful. Purification systems add chemicals rather than remove them, except in some systems where the water supply is deadly at its source. This is especially true of some waters in Louisiana and New Jersey. Fluorine is added to water not as a purifier, but as a mass medication. This waste product of the chemical and metals industry has been rammed down our throats, so to speak, in the mistaken belief by many that it will prevent tooth decay. Obviously, it doesn't work, for tooth decay is just as rampant today as before. In fact, it is worse than ever. Fluorine is in the water of more than half of our population's water supplies. Inorganic fluorine compounds are carcinogenic and deadly. Poisons are never the basis of health. Our teeth are sabotaged by dietary practices also. Spring and well water. As mentioned earlier, many people think mineral water, well water, spring water, or other impure water is just what we need. Spring water, waters from mountain streams and waters to which certain minerals have been added, are quite popular. In New York City and in some other places, such waters are the rage. Many people in these places will not touch their city water supply for drinking purposes. But processed waters, which have had mineral concoctions added, and waters from springs and mountain streams are in vogue. While these waters with their mineral content cannot possibly be as harmful as the mineralized and chemicalized water supplies, they are, nevertheless, very unwholesome. Distilled water is available in New York City, but it is relatively neglected in favor of so-called natural waters. Many waters, especially imported spring waters, are prized for their particular tastes. Some waters are carbonated to give them extra attraction, but all such waters are harmful. Pure water is pleasant to drink and has no taste or kick whatsoever. If you're thirsty, pure water is the most satisfying of all, even without any taste thrill. Though you should get most or all of your water from your food, you should never try to get anything from water but water. For the purposes of emphasis and enhanced understanding, we will repeat what has already been stated about water. Anything in water, as drawn from tap, well, spring, or stream, is inorganic and harmful. The body cannot digest or metabolize inorganic substances. Other than air, water, and sunshine, the body cannot utilize anything except organic compounds as found in food. All else is poisonous. Inorganic materials cannot be utilized. They clog up our bodies if not eliminated, and they combine with body fluids, oils, compounds, and wastes, and form substances that cake our vascular system. They are deposited in our joints and muscles, interstitial spaces, organs, and lymphatic system. Both deranged foods, that is, those that have been cooked and processed, and impure water contain inorganic minerals which are harmful to the organism. People with the debris of impure water and cooked food in their systems usually do not eliminate all of it. When these substances are in an active state, that is, when they are circulating in the system, the body is in a frenzy. Leukocytes, white blood cells, proliferate, pulse rates increase, and often enough, these people are stimulated. The stimulation usually begins within 15 to 30 minutes after drinking or ingesting and lasts until the minerals are eliminated or sidetracked in the system, as in plaques which form in arteries. Just as impure water contains harmful, non-usable inorganic minerals, so do cooked foods. This topic will be covered in depth in a later lesson. There are several schools of thought in this country that advocate drinking mineral-containing water, such as well water, spring water, and mineral water. They say that mineral-containing water is needed because the body requires the minerals from it. In addition, they say that distilled water causes heart attacks and leaches needed minerals from the body, causing tooth decay, porrhea, and osteoporosis, and that distilled water is dead water and fish cannot live in it. They contend that water containing minerals will correct these problems as well as preventing them from happening in the first place. Proponents of mineral-containing water attribute the superb health of the Hunsas to mineralized water. The Hunsas are one of the healthiest people in the world. They supposedly drink a frothy white mineralized water from glacial runoff. Of course, there are valid responses to these arguments. To the implication that we need the minerals in impure water, we point out that, if our diet is proper, we get more than we need of minerals of all kinds. Further, the minerals in water are totally unusable, thus making them a toxic burden within instead of nutritional. Water is needed in the body for itself, not for any incidental impurities it may have picked up from soil and rock. Rather than distilled water causing heart attacks, it is the other way around. Distilled water does not leave behind any indigestible debris from unusable inorganic minerals. Those who drink mineral-containing water are often found to have heavy plaque in their systems. The rejected minerals which the body cannot use often combine with cholesterol and other fatty substances to form plaque. These block the arteries. The rejected minerals are also likely to be put aside in the body in space that exists. Notably is this so in the cranial cavity, where the spaces of lost brain cells are filled in by minerals, thus leading to ossification of the brain. This is a cause of senility. How pure water could leach minerals from the body has received a thorough refutation from physiologists. An important thing to remember about water and anything else put into the body is that it is done unto by the body. It does not do unto the body. Those substances which seem to act on the body, as in the case of unmanageable acids, compounds, and chemicals, are poisons. The body is the master of its domain. Following this reasoning, soft water does not leach minerals from the body. The body uses water. Water doesn't use the body. Water and other foodstuffs are under the control of the body while in the body. The body does what it wants to with water. It excretes the water if it's not needed. Along with the water, it excretes mineral matter that is no longer required. The kidneys are the final arbiters of what will be excreted and what will be returned to the body economy for use. For instance, the body recycles about 95% of its iron regardless of the water we drink. It also recycles many other mineral compounds or salts. The body is very conservative with its nutrient supplies. An example is eating watermelon. If you eat watermelon, your urine will be completely clear. There will be almost no mineral matter in it to color it. The very pure water of watermelon that is unneeded by the system is speedily expelled. Very little mineral or other matter will be in it. For the body is doing unto the water. The water does not circulate freely in the body. The body retains or expels the water according to its need. On the other hand, if you are fasting or under any other condition in which you're not taking water from food and the body is conserving its water supply, your urine will become very dark yellow because the body is giving up more wastes and more mineral matter relative to the water it is expelling. What the Hunzas, or North Pakistan, drink is not responsible for their health. Water is a need of life, but total health is dependent on healthful living. Water is but one element of many. Travelers who have gone there find that the Hunzas really drink very little water. They're primarily fruit eaters. The water they do drink is permitted to settle first. As the glacial runoff comes rushing down the mountains, it picks up minerals as debris rather than holding them in solution. That is, the water has silt in suspension rather than minerals in solution. This silt is the basis of Hunza health, true, but because it is deposited on their fertile gardens, not because they drink soil and rock in the water. The water itself comes from relatively pure snow. Very few minerals are in solution by the time it has rushed from the heights to their catch basins below. Only a few minutes of time in contact with minerals accounts for the mineral complement of these waters. Again, how can waters be responsible for a condition of health? If drinking water was the secret for great health, then all we'd have to do is drink the kind of water we need and not worry about food, exercise, sleep, or anything else. Water would take care of everything. Healthful living would be unnecessary. Next, let's examine the argument that pure water is dead water and that fish can't live in it. As you know, many fish live in the ocean. We can't drink seawater, for we'd quickly die. It has a heavy complement of minerals. Seawater is richer in minerals than any water in the world. Other fish live in rivers, creeks, ponds, and lakes. You don't drink water out of rivers, ponds, and other places where fish live. Such waters contain the excrement of fish and other creatures, decaying leaves and other organic matter. In fact, we don't drink from fishy waters for a very good reason. It's unfit to drink. Further, water, whether fish live in it or not, cannot be described as living or as dead. In short, there can be no living water, for it is an inert, lifeless compound at all times. It is true fish cannot live in distilled water. Distilled water has no air in it. Neither does it have the food supplement a fish requires. Thus, it can be seen the argument is without any merit. To repeat, if we're eating the diet to which we're biologically adapted, we do not have to drink water except on those occasions when we must use unusual amounts of it to rehydrate ourselves, as in heavy physical labor in hot weather. Why do most Americans drink so much water and other liquids? Cooked food eaters require copious amounts of water. People who take in so many irritants or poisons as found in heat-deranged foods, in condiments, especially salt and other seasonings, and in unsuitable foods such as grain and animal foods, need this water to help hold toxic minerals in suspension so that they offer less harm to cells and tissues. People who eat a wholesome diet require less water than people who eat an unwholesome diet. On wholesome diets, there is usually sufficient water in the foods to meet all needs, whereas on an unwholesome diet, abnormal amounts of water are required to help cope with the irritants, stimulants, excitants, or poisons within. Edema or dropsy, for instance, is a disease of those who eat cooked foods and or salts and other condiments. The body takes on extra water to hold these toxic materials in suspension. Until the body can dump these, they are stored in likely areas, often the feet and legs. A few days of fasting enables the body to catch up on its house cleaning. It thus will expel the waters and purify its fluids and tissues. This concludes our examination in depth of the first two essentials of life, air and water. In the next lesson, we'll keep up consideration of other of life's essentials.